Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
If you take a second, you look at your life, you kind of examine it. You think about where I was, where I am, where I want to be. And if the answers come back for you, whoa, I'm having some challenges, relationships aren't the way I feel they should be. I'm not feeling fulfilled. Something doesn't align with what's in here, out here. You probably have emotional wounds that you need to heal from, things that happened in your past. And I'm talking about way in your past. And you're probably not even aware of it. We're going to talk about that today. And she's somebody that helps people with that all the time as just a phenomenal psychologist, works with couples, individuals, and really helps move their life forward. Dr. Ann Creekmore is back with us. Hi, Ann. How you doing?
Hi, Steve. Good. How are you?
Fantastic. I'm great.
Yay.
I'm grateful you're here because I truly believe that this is something that many of us don't realize. And many, if not all of us, and you can address this, all of us have stuff from our past that we haven't really fully dealt with. Maybe we're not even aware of it, but it has held us back in moving our life forward. Would you say that we all got something going on?
Absolutely. People come in, and they want to talk about their problems of living with the therapist, which is exactly, of course, what we want to do, hear what's going on, what's bothering them and the stress. But a lot of times we got to go deeper. We got to figure out what kind of things are going on at a deeper level, because they, even just your subconscious, limiting beliefs are going to affect how you handle things or your self-esteem and whether you're going to have the self-esteem to handle something. Just for example.
Yeah. And one of the biggest beliefs, if you will, is that we're not good enough.
Exactly.
I'm not good enough. So like just what you said, addressing what you said, in that the strength and courage to overcome situations, sometimes we don't have that or don't think we can because of that belief that came from typically our childhood. And we're not talking about major trauma. Can be, yes.
Yes.
Well, it could be things that in the big picture of life are a little bit more minimal. What am I talking about? You could have been picked on by a sibling. You could have been bullied on the playground. Your parents maybe said something, didn't really mean it. They just kind of passing comment. Whoop, you retained it, you held it, and now you're now your life is actually piloted by that one situation.
Right. Yeah, I had mentioned to you, I think sometime that in the Landmark Forum at Landmark Education, they actually look at, for everybody, different points in their life that they kind of make a decision. Like, well, do I belong, or what's wrong? What's wrong with me? And it kind of gets into your kind of default. It could be just like you're saying, just an experience that you have, and you just kind of make a decision about yourself and your life and your capability just from that experience. It doesn't even have to be any ongoing trauma, abuse, kind of thing. It could be just a natural thing that we do just to kind of organize our lives. It's like, well, I guess I'm just this way, and it's just an unconscious belief, or limitation that you've made a decision. You just kind of your default.
Yeah. There's so much going on there. So let's look at identifying that trauma, if you will. And trauma is an interesting word because somebody might hear it and think, well, I don't have any trauma in my life. My childhood was really actually pretty okay. Maybe it was, but trauma what would you describe as trauma?
Well, how would you describe trauma? I mean, when you're talking about the traumas you're talking about, what are you thinking about?
The things I mentioned, those things, those, I look at them as big T trauma. That could be a divorce. Your parents got divorced. And again, we're centering on your childhood because that's kind of where it begins. It could be the passing of a relative.
Right.
That's the big T. The little T, bullied on the playground, made fun of as a kid. Those things right there, little T trauma. Is that in line with what you think?
Yeah, exactly. And it could be even things like, one of your family members has got medical problems, like one of your parents has a chronic illness, and maybe they pass when you're a teenager, but it's still, and it affects you, as you're growing up. It could be, having a medical problem yourself and having to go in and out. It could, they say that having the birth of a sibling is like a trauma in a sense. I mean, you have to think that's a big deal. You're little, and all of a sudden your parents are just, having to go somewhere else, or, move in the next room and take care of somebody else all the time. It's kind of traumatic. So everyday, normal kind of traumas as well, in a sense.
Wow. I didn't even think of that.
Mhm.
That's wow.
Yeah.
And I get it. Wow, I never even thought of that as being a trauma. But yes, it can be traumatic if you, let's say you're 7 years old and you have a, baby brother, baby sister born.
Right.
Think of the things that what takes place. The attention has now been taken off of you. That's normal.
Absolutely.
That's normal.
Right.
Um, there's so many things that come in line with just that. Then as you grow up, that's the baby sister. You gotta take care of the baby sister. That's another trauma.
Right.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah.
So let's say we go back and we look at those things. We do some soul searching. We identify, well, I had that. Well, I had that. You're not really sure that those are traumas that changed, let's not call them traumas at this point. You're not really sure that those events have
Hmm.
affected you, because there are some children that have a sibling born. They're perfectly fine. Got bullied on the playground. Yeah, rolled off your shoulder. No problem. There's others where it becomes a little T trauma. So how do
Hmm.
you identify those events when you think back in your mind to your childhood? How do you identify that those are things that have made a difference in your life?
Well, one of the ways you can do it, and it's in my book in chapter 3, "Healing Emotional Wounds of the Past," and "Love Yourself, Love Your Life" book. Um, that when you start to feel intensely about something, maybe you realize it's a little bit too intense. Like, why is this bothering me so much? I mean, why am I obsessing over it for 3 days? And you can then, if you can identify the feelings you're feeling below just the anger, because anger we always can get, we're frustrated or whatever, but we
Sure.
can go and say, well, am I feeling sad about something, hurt, disappointed, or am I feeling anxious, apprehensive, scared about something? And get to those feelings and then ask ourselves, well, when did I feel that way before this? Like, in other words, what has been maybe triggered? What are your associations? When you felt like this before, what was going on in life, like growing up, in your childhood or in a relationship? Then that would bring up the past pain, your awareness to the surface, because we have a lot of defense mechanisms that we use that so we don't have to feel pain, and we may not really connect it, unless we make an effort to introspect. I can give an example of, I was going to kind of it was an event, it was kind of a meditation or a spiritual kind of things I like to do, the personal growth, kind of professional growth kind of things. And the guitarist gave a little speech before he did the guitar. He had lost weight so he could actually help, and do songs there. But he shared through contemplation something that he had discovered about himself, since this whole thing was about self-discovery, right?
Hmm.
And he said how he was outside and he just manicured his lawn. He's so proud. He's called when he got his wife, when he came back out, the scene, there was a dog that had pooped on the lawn. He was completely enraged, and here it was, I had this perfect lawn, and now this, and it was like, wait a minute, being a person that is into self-healing and just being a peace and more the love and peace, he said, I'm going to contemplate, meditate. That's what we need to do. So he went in to think, why am I so angry? What is my feelings of anger? Well, what he brought up was a memory which had been repressed. That's a defense mechanism where you just block something out below the surface and you don't remember it. But something can jog your memory in it, or if you let it. Well, what he remembered actually was they were in another country where apparently it was legal to do this, back in the day, way back in the day, where his father had actually was mad at the neighbor's dogs for coming in and doing things in his yard or whatever, and had actually poisoned a dog, the neighbor's dog. And he actually, as a little 5-year-old, had watched this dog writhe in pain and die from the poison. And he had no recollection of that until he took that time, instead of to go out, because he was saying, I want to kill that dog. I mean, that's kind of a reenactment, right, from what had happened, what he experienced as a little one. And he brought it up, and it came back to him, and he had to go through a major, grief because, of seeing that, and grief about, what had happened, and get below that anger. And it was a trauma that he didn't even remember.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It does make you think about all those situations in your life that you were exposed to and how it could have made an impact and pilots your life today.
Exactly.
I find that that's the hard part. I call it connecting the dots when you think
Yeah.
back to those things and then how it translates, because not everything is going to. You may think of a situation like, wow, that was really bad, but it didn't affect you.
At the moment, or maybe you got your defenses worked well and you
Well,
were able
that's
to put it down.
exactly. But
Below.
yes,
Yes.
it's differentiating between this event and that event, and which one is truly affecting you now. Maybe they're not. Maybe both are. Maybe only one is. In my mind, I think that's the challenge. We can sit there, and then of course you have those situations where you think back. You may not remember everything because you buried it in your mind, right?
Right, exactly. And the defense mechanism are there to protect you from emotional pain, like repression. Just you don't even remember that it happened. It just went underground.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I know I was bullied as a kid, and I know that turned into perfectionism and people pleasing.
Yes.
And typical, I'm not good enough.
Yes. So that subconscious belief that you hold, and then you have your ways of coping, that you've learned how to cope to try to avoid that in the future, right?
Yep.
If you please them, they won't be bullying you. Right.
Yeah.
You don't even understand, why you do it exactly. But it's like, it's just something I call it a maladaptive learning, that you've just gotten into that mode to do it that way, to protect yourself.
Yeah, sure. But I recognized it, a number of years ago and addressed it. So the perfectionism thing, and I didn't see how it was kind of not controlling my life, but just making it more challenging that things had to be perfect. Now, I don't even and I'm a Virgo. So astrologically, if you look at it that way, Virgos things got to be, in order and everything. Let it go. Let it go.
Yeah.
It's like life's too short. Like this.
Right. And maybe a lot of times it's and you probably did this, to get to the grief of it, to let the child be able to express and to grieve, to work through the phases of grief, or the shock, somebody doing it to you and feeling angry, or like you did something wrong, and then just getting sad and disappointed, and just then really letting it go. That's get to the acceptance. It was sad and sorry that happened, and you just got to let it, and just, it's okay to cry about anything. So,
and there was other things
I can go party and cry about that if you want to. You really want to go, but certainly something like that, it's good to grieve it.
Yeah, and there was other things surrounding it as well, which didn't help the situation. But I addressed it: hypnotherapy, therapy, all of that, energy healing, realizing. But again, in my mind, connecting the dots is the key thing. Why do I act this way? Oh, that's because of that. And once you make that, that the connection, then it starts coming clearer. You could have somebody, oh, let's go hypothetical here. Um, let's say a relationship ended, and now they have anxiety about being alone. Let's say their parents divorced when they were younger,
Right.
and that could lead into the feelings of being alone, abandoned. That's the word I'm looking for. Feeling
Yes.
abandoned. So that, later in life, you could have a relationship and then somebody, walks out, or they, let's say I'm going away. Let's say you had that situation when you were younger,
Yes.
and your partner is now going on a vacation with their buddies.
Exactly.
Everybody needs their own time, with their friends.
Right.
You look at that as like, whoa, wait, you're leaving? Whoa, wait. Um,
Exactly.
and you find it hard to let them go even for a week. And then, you're wondering what's up there. That could come from that situation, but you don't even realize why you're doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think in my book, in Healing Wounds of the Emotional Wounds of the Past, excuse me, I talk about a person who he was upset because when he'd get home from bowling every night after work, his wife wasn't sitting up and waiting for him to have their quality time. And he felt really abandoned. Well, it turns out basically she was pregnant and she was exhausted. She went to bed a little early, started to go to bed, and she wasn't abandoning him. She was having his baby, and just taking care of herself. But he was totally devastated because it turned out that his father was an alcoholic. And as we explored it, through therapy, and he felt very abandoned and had been abandoned numerous times by his dad. Like all of a sudden, he's not there. He's just not there. And this was triggering that for him. So, and it was interfering with their
Mm,
marriage. In fact, that's why he came to therapy, because the problem of living was, having some marital, conflict. But
wow.
really, he was having to bring up to heal that wound of abandonment from the past. Yeah.
Wow. So what are some of the steps to heal? Okay, we've made the connection. That happened in your past childhood, whatever. You figured out, oh, that's why I act like this today. How do you start the healing process?
Well, the start is when when you're feeling these intense feelings that don't seem like totally appropriate to the situation, like the guitarist who's thinking he's going to go kill an animal, and he's this nice peace loving person because of this, getting on the lawn and doing something normal that dogs would do. That he realized, wait a minute, why am I so upset? Then taking that time to go meditate, if you will, or contemplate, however you call it, have your own peace time to kind of say, well, what am I feeling? Let me really see the deeper feelings below the anger. And then asking yourself the question, what associations come up to these feelings? When did I feel this way before? What memories come up? And
Hmm.
then is to heal those memories. Of course, this is in the past, and it's not happening now. It's not that current little friction with your coworker or your spouse. It's actually the issue. You've got to grieve, got to do the grief work of getting to the point of crying about, letting the hurt out that
Hmm.
happened when these things happened. So, and then kind of seeing it from an adult perspective as well. You can kind of look at it. And the reason I bring this up is because some people use repression, like I mentioned, that kind of just like it becomes unconscious, and you just blocked out the memory. But some people, if they have, as children under age of 8, have um, chronic stress, dysfunction, trauma, maybe, they are, abused, then they may use dissociation, which is a different defense mechanism. Dissociation is the available defense mechanism, early primitive defense mechanism that children can use because they're very imaginative. Dissociation is like self hypnosis, where the person, kind of the child, just can't handle that there's domestic violence, and now walked out and there's blood on the, on the island between the parents fighting, and that's just too much. You're going to have a nervous breakdown as a child having lived in that situation. So they just mentally go away. They're self-hypnotized. It's like, I'm not here anymore. And they let another part of their brain handle that situation. And that becomes the part that handles all these kind of type of traumas that go on. And the amnesia walls go around it, and the child can get up, go out and play, doesn't, deal with that at all. Got the walls blocking it out. A little different than going just underground. Because what happens when the child learns to dissociate is that every time there's a stress, like you said, there's different levels of stressors. You get bullied at school or whatever, and it's different than an aggressive encounter between your parents in your home, but still, it certainly would be something you could dissociate from. You're going to school, you don't want to go, that somebody's bullying you at times. Oh, well, so you develop a part, you go away, and another part of your brain handles that, maybe a pleaser part. For example, to how to avoid these things. It's always handles that. It comes out all the time, and so on. So you start to develop different parts. Just starting school would be something. You just start school, and that's stressful. What I'm going to sit with all these children in a little desk and follow someone. Oh, okay, I know how to say so. Mentally hypnotize myself in a sense, mentally escape, go away, let another part of your brain. Oh, now you got your student part. So you walk into school, you look up, oh, this is school. Okay, you're up to bat. I'm a student, and student's out. So the reason I bring this up is that if you have that, which, when I do the dissociative experience scale as part of my regular assessment, when people come in along with ADHD tests and the PTSD and all this stuff, just to get to know everything at a deep level when they first come in, if they have dissociation, which about 30% of people who come in my office do, have the symptoms, like being able to see yourself as if you're kind of looking at another person, or having a lot of gaps in your memory, that kind of thing would be examples of a few symptoms of it. Then they can, through therapy, or when they go to do this contemplative work, they're actually going into different parts of their brain, different parts of themselves. And those parts may be kind of stuck in time, where they're at that same age. They're kind of like, not say paralyzed, it's not the correct word, but just kind of at that young age, just at that level. So when you actually reach into a part of yourself, and or the therapist is helping you to reach in, you're actually connecting to that part of you that is still stuck at that time in that trauma. And that can be very easily remedied in therapy, because that that's another part of the person, and you can talk to them at that level. And you can actually do age progression hypnosis as well, where you go 3 years older and get them up. But you can ask that part to kind of look through the eyes of the person at their body and say, wait a minute, look, you're in a grown man now. And, look down through your eyes. You're part of an internal family system that has been coping, and you're there, and, but look through, you're actually in a grown man. You don't have to worry about being bullied at school anymore. You just, you're grown. You're going to be driving off. You're not sticking around for anything. And you can actually do that healing, because they're not stuck there anymore. So all that fear is gone, and like, well, what do you want to do now? And that person can be really relieved by looking at each of their separate dissociated parts to do that contemplative and healing work. But it's a little bit more complicated, obviously, what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I wasn't aware that I didn't do a lot of talk therapy with a psychologist, not like you offer. I went the other route through, like I mentioned, hypnotherapy, did some energy healing, timeline regression, things like that. So to me, this is kind of new. Like, I didn't know that you could find that out through talking and connecting with your past. This is the stuff that pilots us. To me, this is everything. Everything. If you're not living the life you want to, good chance, really good chance, there's a reason, and it goes back
Right.
to your childhood. It's almost as if somebody goes to the doctor, has a physical situation, and the doctor just throws you some meds. You're not going to the root cause of it.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing here. If you have some challenges in your life, maybe some depression and things like that, you get medication for that. What's causing it though? Maybe it's a
Right.
trauma from your past.
Yeah.
And once you figure that out, you don't need the temporary fix, if you will.
Exactly. Or you might just need some vitamin D in addition, and then heal the emotional wounds of the past, and you don't even have the depression.
Yeah, no. Funny, you say that, but I don't know if I shared with you, but last year, I did a standard lab test, and it came up where I was very deficient in vitamin D, the lowest they have ever seen.
Wow.
And I wondered why am I feeling like kind of down? I have no energy. What's going on there? And then I've learned that vitamin D helps other vitamins, your body absorb other vitamins as well.
Right.
So,
and it's very related to depression and chronic and just feeling so fatigued and tired. So yes, there's these natural things you can go within and heal and just care for yourself, get to the root functioning when you see your doctor, your therapist, to find
game
out.
Changing. Yeah. You do this and you can do it virtually as well. How do we find you, Ann?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is probably going to Psychology Today, the directory, because I'm right on there, and Creekmore. And then I have my link to my website right on there. You can just click it. It tells you everything about me. It's got my books on there and my phone number. You can reach me that way.
Sure. And of course, we can't forget this amazing book where it's all there. Your entire life is in this book. Not your life, our life.
All of our lives.
The keys to the universe are in there.
Thank you.
And it's easy to understand and apply to yourself. It's not this, deep kind of thing. And by the way, let me just share, AP Filosa is your pen name.
Correct.
So if somebody's looking for that, always a pleasure. And thank you for being here today. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve, for everything.
Thanks. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.